They stick their noses into everything.
Wonderful. It's impossible to have more nature in a glass.
Distillers are searching for the best aroma.
Vanilla, plum.
But German spirits have a poor reputation. Something young distillers are eager to change and prove wrong.
Let's get to the schnapps and see how strong it is.
They're shifting the focus from mere intoxication to true enjoyment. Once dismissed as hooch, these spirits are now crafted as fine brandies.
Black Forest cherry brandy means cherries from the Black Forest, distilled in the same region without sugar and with at least 40% alcohol.
The Halter family in Oberkirch-Baden is now in its 5th generation of distilling schnapps from their own fruit, especially cherries.
We have the best cherry brandy here. These are not the large, heart-shaped cherries found in supermarkets, but small black cherries, sweet and very aromatic, with a high sugar content.
No Black Forest cake is complete without it. A well-known confectionery includes Piedmont cherries in its chocolates. In Oberkirch, northwest of Offenburg, the production of the renowned Black Forest cherry brandy is a long-standing tradition. Oberkirch, with around 20,000 inhabitants, boasts almost 900 distilleries, making it the densest concentration of distilleries in Europe. The church is to blame. In 1726, the Bishop of Strasbourg allowed all residents of Baden to distill schnapps for personal use, aiming to boost tax revenue. This led to the establishment of many small orchards, creating a unique cultural landscape that persists to this day. Johannes Halter harvests and processes his cherries early in the morning while it's still cool. This freshness is essential for the distinctive taste of his cherry brandy.
When it's 30 degrees Celsius outside, the cherries also reach a temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, which kickstarts the fermentation process. You get a wonderful cherry aroma in the cellar. But when I taste my brandy afterwards, I notice that it doesn't have as much aroma because it is already evaporated.
From the tree directly into the fermentation barrel. The standards for the most famous of all German fruit brandies are strict, no additives, and a minimum alcohol content of 40%.
All right.
Can I watch, Dad?
Yeah, you can watch. Take your finger out.
But distillers do have one choice to make.
Many distilleries remove the stones before distilling cherries. I prefer to distill my cherries with the stones, or at least some of them, because the stones add a beautiful almond, marzipan, and bitter almond aroma. And this to me is an integral part of the cherry brandy.
Additional sugar is strictly forbidden, even in the smallest amount. The refractometer shows the sugar content of the cherries.
So let's see how much sugar is in it.
Let me see.
Pretty much what I expected, 95. Oh, you also want to have a look. Because of the acidity, some water got in. Look again. See something?
Assisting enthusiastically, 3-year-old David will likely continue the family tradition. He has a very specific idea of the right taste and aroma. Alexander Stein is the owner of the Jacobi distillery. He's considered something of a Yoda in distillery circles. After all, he's one of the most successful schnapps producers.
I'm not quite as old and not as green, but I'm happy to accept it. I really like Yoda.
Alexander Stein has always created and produced spirits on a completely different scale compared to the many small distillers in the Black Forest. He's the creator of a gin that is enjoyed worldwide, Monkey 47. In 2008, the name Monkey 47 already stood out from the range of German spirits. The gin triggered a real boom in bars and clubs. The name Monkey 47 says it all. The gin has an alcohol content of 47% and is distilled with exactly 47 botanicals. Never before had such a large number of plant-based ingredients been combined in a gin, and certainly not in a gin from the German Black Forest. This is because the monkey inventors found many of their 47 ingredients right on their doorstep. These include cranberries, spruce shoots, and blackberry leaves. Stein controlled his idea of the perfect gin at every stage of production. This is how the monkey from the Black Forest distillery conquered the whole world.
I recall the moment I came up with the idea of producing gin in the Black Forest in 2008. Back then, people laughed about it or shook their heads. I'm drawn to things that are underappreciated in some way. I prefer endeavors where I can make an impact on quality through hard work, an impact that can be tasted, felt, and smelled in the final product.
The success of Monkey 47 made Alexander Stein proud and rich when he sold the brand to the Pernod Ricard conglomerate in 2016.
We shipped our product to 65 countries in a 12-man operation. It felt like my life was spent mostly on airplanes. It was time for me to shift from managing to developing and dedicating myself to new areas. This change also gives me entrepreneurial freedom. It will always be my passion project, my baby. Ownership is not always the most important thing.
Thanks to his baby, he can now fully indulge in his passion for exploring new flavors. The trend toward mixed drinks has led to an increase in imitators. Suddenly, everyone wants to distill their own gin. In Hamburg, gin enthusiast and biologist Hauke Günther starts experimenting just as the Monkey 47 brand is being sold.
Gin is a versatile spirit that allows for a lot of experimentation, and I personally enjoy drinking it. I could have easily made brandy with a mini distillery, and that would have been much simpler. But I don't drink brandy and Coke, so I preferred to make gin instead. After doing some research and gathering juniper from the supermarket, I bought a bottle of vodka and got started. As a funny coincidence, turmeric ended up in the mix. When I tried the concoction after the turmeric was added, it turned out to be a pretty exciting moment.
One reason for the influx of newcomers to gin distilling is the relatively simple production process. Besides alcohol and juniper, all you really need is creativity.
Gin is made by adding alcohol to the botanicals, which are the source of the desired flavor. The alcohol acts as a solvent to extract the aromas from these botanicals. We purchase the alcohol we use, which is sourced from agricultural products such as potatoes, wheat, sugar beet, or other sources. Technically, the specific source of the alcohol is not that important for gin production.
The gin distillers don't have to deal with the complex process of alcohol production through fermentation. Before Hauke starts up the large distillery, he first experiments with technical equipment from the laboratory. As a biologist, it's familiar to him, very practical.
This is a vacuum still that allows me to distill at very low atmospheric pressure. I can experiment with a recipe here within 2 hours and think about the direction in which I want to develop it.
Quick success, a steep learning curve, and surprising new flavors.
If you warm up a cucumber and distill it in a normal still, it will still develop the aroma of a stewed cucumber, and that's not desirable. By using a vacuum to distill the cucumber at below 40 degrees Celsius, I can isolate the fresh cucumber aroma.
Their Hamburg Zanzibar Turmeric No. 1 introduces Hauke and his wife Yuka to new experiences, not just in terms of flavor.
We actually won the World Gin Award with this gin as the world's best flavored gin. It was an amazing moment, especially considering it was the second year of the pandemic. The universe opened a tiny door for us during the pandemic. People were all sitting at home in the mood for good news and certainly drank too much. That benefited us. Since then, we've been taking it a bit more seriously.
Now, they have their own small family business with a proper distillery, store, and tasting seminars, not to mention an award-winning gin. They made it from rags to riches. Many gin makers share that dream. Their numbers increase. Germany seems to be a gin country. The focus is often on the name and packaging rather than the taste. The Craft Spirits Awards in Berlin bring together young, urban clientele, new gin makers, and experienced master distillers.
We have some producers here who've been operating a still for 50 years and make the best spirits, but they can't even spell the word hipster. Then there are also products in the same category that may not be as mature or as great as their packaging suggests.
You can't tell from the attractive bottles whether they contain high-quality gin or a product merely capitalizing on the current trend. In Schöppingen, near Münster, the Sasse family has been distilling schnapps for over 300 years. It's certainly not a trendy drink. Rüdiger Sasse distills grain from the surrounding fields and uses water from his own spring. The Münsterländer Korn has always been popular in the region. In Westphalia, the so-called Korn has a rich tradition. Now, Rüdiger and his son Lennart are experimenting with something new: grain from wooden barrels.
Bordeaux.
Let's take that. That should be from 2006. Let's take a sample from there and a sample from the front.
All right, okay.
Would you like to draw a sample?
Yeah.
Not the grain that many expect. A traditional, clear schnapps, a thing of the past.
Ah, herrlich.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Wow. Tolle Farbe.
The color's great.
Das ist schon
Really
verrückt,
crazy if you think about it.
Weil, wenn man sich überlegt, dass ein Destillat
Normally,
immer klar
a
ist,
distillate is
Wasser
always
und
clear like water, but now we have an almost rum-like brown color.
Aromartige, braune Farbe.
Cool.
Das ist schon ziemlich, aber Vanille.
Vanilla, plum, and orange. Really nice.
Fruity, fresh.
Gut, dann gucken wir mal.
Let's
zum
take a look at the
Vergleich.
barrel in front we've picked for comparison.
Das ist was, was wir uns ausgesucht haben. Auch eine schöne Farbe, aber anders.
Beautiful color as well, but it's different.
Nicht so kräftig.
It's not just the color of the Lagerkorn that surprises.
Na, es sind die gleichen Fässer.
They're the same barrels, and it's basically the same distillate that's been stored there. But we get two completely different products. You can clearly see by the color and the aroma. Or what do you think?
Was meinst du?
This one's much smoother.
In meiner Nase.
Yeah, they say there's something called the angel share, which is the alcohol that evaporates. But I always say that the angel always leaves something behind as well. It gives each barrel its own touch, and what eventually becomes of it is a matter of pure chance.
Rüdiger Sasse felt the need to revitalize the corn brand in the 1980s. By then, Korn, a specific type of German spirit, was struggling to find buyers. As drinking preferences had changed, Korn was now considered a cheap and potent liquor, rather than a refined specialty. As a result, sales plummeted. In 1985, the company lost its distilling rights. Rüdiger Sasse's father, Ernst, had to dismantle the distillery and sell off the equipment. All that remained was a simple shop and huge debts. Despite this setback, the Sasse family stayed determined to carry on the 300-year-old tradition.
We seized the opportunity to change the way we produce corn. Instead of using modern methods from the 2000s, we decided to return to the traditional techniques used by our ancestors in the mid-19th century. We're relearning these old methods and using traditional raw materials in the hope of achieving entirely different taste results.
Rüdiger Sasse becomes the new distiller, distilling like his ancestors. The process for making Münsterländer corn involves grinding grain malt into flour and then pumping it into a 6,000-liter mash tub. In the tub, the flour boils up with water and enzymes convert the starch into sugar, which is then turned into alcohol by yeast during fermentation. Now, the mash undergoes its first distillation. For Rüdiger Sasse, it's back to the future all the way.
We're thrilled to have found a machine that's identical to the one my great-grandfather bought in 1870. It's from the same manufacturer and has the same design. We still have the original documents for it. When this machine was offered to us at a disused distillery, we jumped at the chance.
Master distiller Hendrik Fifus must have the impressive machine under control at all times.
We heat with steam from below. The steam passes through the opening under the bell at the bottom. The liquid rises. The fermented mash is put in from the top and distributed over the ground. The excess liquid at the top slowly flows downward in a zigzag pattern. There are temperature differences because we heat from the bottom and introduce the colder mash from the top. This causes it to get colder towards the top until the water can no longer keep up, causing the grain residues in water to flow downward. This is called stillage. Only the alcohol continues to rise and intensify. It is fed into the cooler and then through the indicating gauge. That's how I get the actual raw spirit.
Hendrik distills the raw spirit a second time in order to produce a high-quality spirit. Undesirable aromas can be removed during both the pre- and post-distillation processes. The next step involves smelling and tasting the spirit. The second distiller may be called in for the tasting.
Really nice and fruity. That pungent smell is completely gone. Here, give it a try. I think we can switch to a middle cut. We can definitely taste the fruity components. The strong aldehyde-heavy flavors are completely gone, right?
Tastes good. I'd take a break.
Let's let it sit and see if it needs to process further.
Bringing out the heart, the finest and most aromatic part of the spirit, is the be-all and end-all of distilling. However, patience is required for the finishing touch of the Lagerkorn. Rüdiger Sasse has to take this into account.
Alcohol takes time. You can see that with cognac and whiskey. There are also good qualities of grappa that require a very long time. For us, the minimum aging period is 4 years. However, we've noticed that from 15 years onwards, it becomes really enjoyable. We can only sell today what we distilled 5 years ago. If we were to focus on short-term trends, we might sell more now, but we'd then lack the qualities for the next few years.
The small fruit distillers in the Black Forest don't have the luxury of thinking long-term. The harvest, the duration of fermentation, and the distillation determine their time frame. Even though they produce relatively small quantities, they still have to pay taxes on the alcohol they produce. Holger Daul and Jan Frank from the main customs office in Lörrach closely monitor every tub, kettle, and drop of alcohol.
Hello, how are you doing? Customs.
Hello.
Hi, nice to be here. Everything okay?
Yes.
And it's going well? Nice and warm. Can I put my stuff here?
For 21-year-old Magdalena Wangler, a customs inspection is still uncharted territory.
So I'm going to take my glasses off as a precaution. They're about to fog up.
The young distiller has scheduled 3 distillation processes for today. She must complete each one within a specific time frame, as any deviations can result in penalties for tax offenses. The first distillation has just finished. Magdalena rinses the kettle and fills it with new mash for the second process, adding the so-called lutter, the runoff from the first distillation.
So, now we have some time, right? I'll measure the material consumption, then we can start on the schnapps. So, how strong is it? Have you tried it before? Roughly?
No, not at all today, actually.
So it's a surprise for both of us.
When it comes to measuring the alcohol content, the state is, of course, very strict.
There's a lot of mathematics involved in this business, so having a calculator is important. It's crucial to have a good understanding of the basics and be close to the customer.
First is the analog sensor technology. Then, the customs officer measures the alcohol content electronically.
So approximately 68%. I expect the next round to be slightly stronger, around 69–70%. The first attempt is about 58%.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, so 68.
State-determined yield rates give the amount of high-percentage alcohol that can be distilled from 100 liters of mash. The higher the quality of Magdalena's mash, the greater her profit.
An impressive 6.8. That is very good. She now has apple brandy that has been officially set at 3.6 liters. We have 6.8 liters total of alcohol, from the 100 liters of apple mash. That's a very good yield. This essentially covers her costs. That means she doesn't have to pay tax on the 3.2 liters of alcohol, if I've calculated correctly. She only needs to pay the tax rate for the 3.6 liters of alcohol, and anything beyond that is considered profit. It's like a tax exemption.
A good yield for the newcomer. She's allowed to distill 300 liters per year, a supplementary business to fruit growing.
I've gotten a taste for it. Both of my parents have been distilling schnapps for as long as I can remember. And also my grandma, grandpa, great-grandparents. It's a family tradition, and I want to continue that.
Preserving tradition while modernizing the family business. That's Daniel Bruder's approach as the new distiller just a few kilometers away. The 31-year-old is already discussing distillation techniques with Holger Daul like an expert. He's currently distilling a Baden specialty, Topinambur or sunchoke. Not an easy task. Mashing the root tuber can quickly go wrong. Musty off flavors are common. However, Daniel's brandy impresses customs. It makes something bureaucratic, vaguely sensual. To keep the farm store and the wine tavern open, Daniel has to explore new opportunities. Whiskey is his second passion. Apart from the distillery with its state-of-the-art still, he has set up what he calls a hobby room.
In the past, we began storing single-variety fruit brandies in oak barrels to enhance their pure fruit flavor. The barrels themselves provided additional nuances such as vanilla and caramel. I was so intrigued by the spirits aged in barrels that I decided to learn more about the topic. Whiskey is also mandated to be matured in wooden barrels, so it's a natural connection between the two.
Whiskey must mature in a cask for at least 3 years. During this time, Daniel cannot earn any money from it. Producing wood barrel-aged spirits also makes it challenging to keep up with rapidly changing taste trends, such as aperitifs and mixed drinks. The distiller can only hope that the whiskey improves over the years so that it can be sold at a higher price. Fruit brandies would be ideal for quick business, but among bartenders, they're not particularly popular.
Fruit brandies lack that drinkability. I mean, fewer people than ever drink pure fruit brandy, and gin is rarely consumed on its own. But gin can be enjoyed in long drinks or cocktails.
Since 2017, small distillers have had to focus on improving the quality of their fruit brandies. Prior to that, the Spirits Monopoly Law of 1918 was in effect. The state purchased alcohol from distillers at fixed prices for the war economy and industry. For almost a century, German distillers prioritized quantity over quality. The taste wasn't important. When the spirits monopoly ended, many distillers struggled. They had never learned how to market their products. This led to the bankruptcy of thousands of small businesses. The Halter family in Oberkirch marketed their schnapps independently long before the end of the spirits monopoly, probably anticipating these changes.
Where does this go?
Yeah, and where do we make schnapps?
In the distillery.
In the distillery, exactly.
Competition has increased since the state stopped buying schnapps. So has the quality of the Black Forest brandies. Halter believes this is beneficial for business.
If I want to market myself, I need to ensure that I produce high-quality products. Selling becomes easier when there's quality, undoubtedly. There's been a noticeable increase in quality in recent years.
Many customers may not realize the amount of work that goes into producing a high-quality fruit brandy. including planting, tending, harvesting, and distilling. This is work that a gin maker doesn't have to do.
It's unfortunate that gin is so successful and sold for 30 to 40 euros a bottle. Fruit brandies are often undervalued. It's truly disheartening.
The fruit distiller also wants to grab buyers' attention with a Schnaps experience trail. Fruit brandies among vineyards and orchards. Visitors can taste what they see and smell. Alexander Stein has a natural talent for refining flavors. This is evident with Monkey 47, his hugely successful Black Forest gin. Now, in Gascony, France, he's focusing on perfecting Armagnac, France's oldest spirit. He wants to demonstrate that it can be improved further.
I believe that in the past, people haven't fully captured the complexity of Armagnac in terms of sensory experience. Personally, I envision a variety that's robust yet elegant and delicate.
Flavor enhancements that he can also use for his German brandy Jacobi 1880. Stein has a strong personal connection to the brand. The company Jacobi was established by the Jacobi family in 1880. In the 1930s, the Jacobis fled from the Nazis. In 1953, they sold the company to Karl Stein, Alexander's grandfather. Jürgen, his father, transformed Jacobi 1880 into one of the most renowned brandies in Germany.
Jacobi 1880, privately distilled, privately enjoyed.
Private distillation ceased in 1993. A British group acquired the company. Alexander Stein bought it back in 2020. Now he wants to help it return to its former glory.
I believe that throughout history, people have often prioritized quantity over quality, particularly when it comes to brandy. The French have taken a different approach with protected designations such as cognac and Armagnac. That approach yields long-term benefits.
Returning to the basics, reflecting on essentials. The vineyards of Gascony are probably the perfect place for this. This is the birthplace of all brandies. This is where the fundamental ingredient for good brandy comes from.
Brandy is truly amazing. It begins with wine. You collaborate with winemakers, barrel makers, and work with different vineyards and grape varieties. That's incredibly exciting. Each vintage is unique. I believe it's important to make people aware of the amount of work that goes into creating a product like this and to highlight the variety of flavors.
The wine originates from France, where it's distilled and blended into different brandies from various vintages. It also makes sense to prepare the brandy for shipping here. However, Alexander Stein is not depending solely on the revival of his brandy. The spirits industry is vast.
I produce a bourbon that's infused with a small amount of habanero distillate. I also make a German potato vodka called Le Fric, Jacobi 1880, and Armagnac, Marquis de Montesquieu. Since we don't have some of the grape varieties for this, I use foreign distillates from Armagnac, among others, as well as from Spain. I do the blending and bottling here. This makes it a brandy, but not a German brandy.
The taste of his brandy is more important to Alexander Stein than its country of origin. Hamburg gin makers Hauke and Jukka are not interested in preserving tradition. They're looking for something new. Hauke is driven not only by the surprise success of his turmeric gin, Turmeric No. 1, but also by his wife Jukka. She has introduced him to a special drink. Gin as a so-called micro-spirit, a concentrate.
I originally wanted an alcohol-free gin and tonic. We tried non-alcoholic versions. They were usually water-based. It's really difficult to get the flavors of gin to dissolve in water. Nearly impossible, actually. You need alcohol to do it, which made things complicated. So I asked Hauke to come up with a solution. He ended up using a lot of alcohol. This is 70%, to be exact. It compresses the flavors really well. You can just add a little bit of this to your glass of tonic and have an almost alcohol-free gin and tonic with full flavors.
Almost alcohol-free. It goes without saying that Hauke Günther keeps the production process a big secret.
The process is unique because it allows us to capture the maximum amount of flavor in a very small volume. There is 90% less alcohol, resulting in about 1 gram of alcohol in your drink. For comparison, a third of a liter of Pilsner beer contains 15 grams of alcohol. Theoretically, you can have 7 to 14 drinks of our product to equal 1 beer, depending on the size of the drink you make. You are far away from consuming a typical spirit.
A development that is only possible because Hauke's profession as a biologist and the small vacuum distillery is a perfect mix. The Sasse family can not only rely on the lengthy and expensive process of refining corn in wooden barrels, they also need aperitifs and liqueurs to reintroduce their products into the bars of the country.
There
was a time when Hugo was popular, and a French elderberry liqueur was used for it. It caused a lot of hype. I really like elderberry in all sorts of different forms, and we always said we could do better.
That's why Sasse also produces elderberry liqueur. It's not distilled. Fresh elderflowers are left in a solution of water and citric acid for 24 hours to release their aroma. Then, the blossoms are removed. All that is needed for the liqueur is sugar and 96% alcohol.
This distillate is organic. It's distilled in a neutral way. Our goal is to highlight the fruit or blossom flavors rather than the cereal notes. So this distillate is relatively neutral and of organic quality.
At this point, hardly anything can go wrong. But it's the distiller's nose and taste that determine the quality of the liqueur.
It remained bright and pleasant. Nice, with a strong floral scent of elderflower. It's a true taste of nature.
Rüdiger Sasse plays it safe with his liqueurs, which are essential for popular cocktails. The distiller has learned from past experiences.
I
entered this business with different ideas than my father. If I hadn't done that, the company wouldn't exist today. Our lager corn concept is not backward-looking, but innovative. Every day, we work to discover new distillation combinations that complement specific barrels.
Son Lennart has also realized that there is even more potential with grain brandy. He's training to become a distiller.
Ja, das ist natürlich total cool, wenn
Of course, it's really cool when a young adult decides and says, yes, I can imagine continuing the business.
entschließt und sagt, ja, ich kann mir das schon vorstellen, den Betrieb.
We have over 300 years of history, and every generation is not there to marvel at the ashes, but to carry the flame into the future.
Sondern eben die Flamme weiterzutragen.
The new distillers have to offer their customers more than just high-quality schnapps. In Oberkirch, Johannes Halter is seeking ways to introduce his spirits to local bars. He establishes one himself, Cocktails Made in Oberkirch, a seminar for interested parties.
Wo wir angefangen haben mit den Cocktails, da hast du erstmal natürlich.
When we first began making cocktails, we naturally started with gin and tonic as a long drink.
Einfach coole Sache und
Experimenting with different fruit brandies has been a lot of fun,
Schritt zu gehen, ja.
and it's exciting to explore a new direction.
sind wir mit unseren Obstbrände schon gucken, das muss der verstaubte.
It's important to ensure that our fruit brandies are served more frequently in bars.
Ausgeschenkt werden und auch
They can be put in cocktails, for example.
dass man da wieder mehr
We should try to get more fruit brandies to be used, not just gin and Bacardi and the likes.
was auch immer es alles da gibt. Ne?
The mission of the new fruit distillers: take fruit from the orchard and turn it into a long drink. Alexander Stein wants to make his brandies more popular. Despite their exclusivity, they don't have to be consumed in their pure form.
Ich finde, einen jungen Armagnac, der bietet sich durchaus an, den als
I believe that a young Armagnac is perfect for long drinks or classic brandy cocktails like Vieux Cadet or Sidecar.
alles klassische Drinks. Ich habe nur der Weinbrand im Allgemeinen.
Brandy has been somewhat overlooked in the world of mixology,
Etwas in Vergessenheit.
but I think it's important to reverse this trend and bring brandy back into the spotlight.
Den Weinbrand wieder in den Vordergrund zu stellen.
Did you take your allergy meds?
Yeah, I have. It's rain, so I hope my nose won't itch today.
In Münsterland, the Sasse Grain Distillery is not only updating traditional products, but also modernizing the entire process. Every year, the staff goes out to harvest the flowers for the elderberry liqueur. Good spirits may not grow on trees, but at least the ingredients do.
Das ganze Team fiebert immer auf.
The entire team always looks forward to this day.
Jeder ist schon fast enttäuscht.
People are disappointed if they can't be here.
Wir gehören zusammen, wir ziehen an einem
We
Strang.
belong together, we work together, we make great products
Es
together.
ist auch ganz wichtig, dass heute,
It's important for people to see how we make a product like this and where the raw materials come from.
wo kommen die Rohstoffe her?
At least 20 kilograms of the small flowers must be gathered to justify the effort. By hand, everything is organic. For Hendrik, nothing is better than this.
Ich habe erst die
After training as a chef, I started training as a distiller.
Ausbildung zum Destillateur. Ich habe
I
geschaut,
considered my next steps and decided that I wanted to stay in the region.
und deswegen habe ich eben gesagt,
My job
das
is
ist ein
great.
toller Beruf, das
It's
ist spannend,
exciting.
ich kann mit
I enjoy
Rohstoffen
working with raw materials such as grain, fruit, or herbs to create wonderful products and hopefully make the customer happy.
Den Kunden natürlich auch im Endeffekt hoffentlich glücklich machen.
Despite the idyllic scenes, the window for harvesting is short. Elderflowers are in full bloom for only a few days, and the weather must be dry but not too hot for the harvest.
Ich wiege jetzt die Holunderblüten.
I carefully weigh the elderflowers and make sure that the flowers are open so that their full aroma can be released into the solution.
Rauskommen kann.
This also prevents the flowers from turning brown due to oxidation. This results in a nice light-colored liqueur instead of a brown one.
During the harvest, the boss personally takes care of the catering and brings typical Münsterland specialties to the table. No schnapps, only cokes. Even if it looks like a picnic, it's work. Germany's new distillers. They've mastered the art. With high-quality spirits, they're reclaiming their lost reputation. New techniques are employed for more than just traditional schnapps distillation. Gin distillers aspire to be more than imaginative mixers of botanicals.
I want to see how gin changes as it ages in a barrel. How does it change in a barrel that hasn't been used for port, so the gin doesn't take over some of the port flavors? I'm curious about the influence of different types of wood, of the size and diameter of the barrel. This will be quite an expensive project. I plan to store the gin for at least 1 to 4 years. I'm excited to see the results.
The big names take a different approach. Alexander Stein can afford to try new things outside the mainstream.
Vielleicht wird besser getrunken.
Maybe we can consume better. That's how I'd like to put it. I believe you can thrive in this niche. I think genuine, authentic products will flourish and make it harder for mass production.
Wird's schwieriger.
Focusing solely on exclusivity is too risky for the Sasse grain distillery. In Münsterland, they pursue a different strategy.
Good quality should be the foundation, followed by effective marketing and long-term sustainability.
Despite all the improvements and innovations, new distillers must not forget what they produce: schnapps.
I don't have a product without alcohol. I experimented with water distillation, but decided it wasn't for me. So an alcohol-free cherry brandy? Nah.
Creating new things and perfecting old ones. Constantly pursuing the perfect aroma and absolute enjoyment. This is what motivates all new distillers.